wearing. I actually wore my fanciest sweatshirt today, but I did put on some earrings. So
That's a sweatshirt?
It is, yes.
Oh, rock on.
So I also want to give a quick shout out to the 40 under 40 winners, especially Aaron Gilden, who I had the pleasure of working with in my past life, leading content marketing and media platforms at General Mills. So congrats to all of you. So like Kerry said, I'm Audra Carson. I work at Post Consumer Brands, which probably means nothing to you until I share some of the scale brands that are a part of our portfolio. So you probably know our company better as the manufacturer behind brands like Honey Bunches of Oats and Fruity and Cocoa Pebbles, Honeycomb, Great Grains, Oreo O's and our malt oatmeal, kind of value size and value priced bagged cereals. And so I lead IMC here at Post Consumer Brands and the functions related with that. So think, all of paid, owned and earned media, shopper marketing, incentives, and then partnerships and licensing, which includes both kind of inbound and outbound licensing, which I think we'll hit on at some point today.
For sure.
So that is me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well, Audra and I had a chance to chat, and I think we could have chatted for hours longer because I was fascinated by everything that she was accomplishing. So we're going to hit on a couple of the highlights, and we're going to talk about as much as we can in the time that we have. So the subject today is consumer engagement. And I think, anyone that is in marketing or really in any sort of business in this last year has learned, the hard way about pivoting, in consumer engagement because of the way the world has shut down and the way that we've needed to communicate with our consumers in new and different ways. And so I was fascinated by a case study that Audra was talking about. And I want her to share her experience with what I call the great grape nuts shortage. And if anyone has experienced this over the last year, we thought toilet paper and hand sanitizer was the toughest thing to get. It turns out it was grape nuts. And I'm fascinated by this story. And so wanted Audra to share how we ended up in a grape nuts shortage and what Post did about it.
Yeah, I was going to actually share my screen. Can you see it on there?
I did a second ago.
Okay, hang tight. Let's I'll start with the story and then I'll share the screen. But yeah, COVID. I mean, there are so many stories to tell, and I think aside from the crazy, I could easily make the argument that COVID and the environment that we're all working in has led to some of the most kind of unprecedented and memorable marketing moments of my career personally. And so I'm going to share the great grape nuts shortage with all of you here today. And some of you might not even know what grape nuts is. And for those of you who don't know it or do know it, you probably think of it as like the butt of a lot of jokes, right? You've heard maybe Seinfeld talk about it, Sarah Silverman, and others, because it doesn't contain any grapes or nuts. Believed to kind of have this core demographic of people in nursing homes. And so you can kind of see, the narrative around this particular brand. And, that's not wrong, but it's also not right. And so Grape Nuts is a brand that is loved by, our core target of nutrition nuts, who use it to fuel their healthy lifestyle. It's a super crunchy, versatile, kind of nutrient rich protein and fiber packed cereal that consumers, they kind of told us that they couldn't live without. So I'm going to rewind back to Wednesday, January 27th. And I actually remember the specific date because we got a call from a USA Today reporter asking Post if we were actually going to be discontinuing our grape nuts cereal, which we've been manufacturing for almost 125 years. And so the reporter themselves, they were a pretty loyal fan and started to do some research. And kind of discovered this like underground movement of other fans who are kind of going nuts about not being able to find their grape nuts. And so, we'd been doing kind of the standard, consumer relations stuff and, pacifying consumers on social media with, thanks for your business, we'll be back soon. But that was no longer acceptable, right? When you have one of the biggest major news outlets reaching out, being like, discontinued. And so we'd been letting these fans, down and they had kind of had enough. So the next day, of course, as these things go, right, you've got to get approval, up and down the chain of command. We issued a statement out to the media that next day. And we, saying that we were not discontinuing the brand. that we were merely kind of short on supply due to COVID, and that we were expected to kind of be back into production.
And Audra, what was the shortage? Because it wasn't grapes or nuts, we know. So what was it?
Yeah, no, actually, you know, with the incredible spikes in consumer demand, and particularly for the cereal category, which prior to COVID had been kind of declining, you know, 1 to 2% year on year. You know, when people were in their homes, they were consuming more food. There was kind of a renaissance for cereal, and grape nuts was obviously a part of that. And so we were having a hard time, as many manufacturers were, in keeping up with demand, right? And so we were prioritizing, in some cases, our, you know, more popular or more profitable lines when line time was limited, and it was even more limited, obviously because of COVID. You know, we had some, you know, manufacturing situations, as most did too, you know, due to health. So yeah, we issued the statement, and I kid you not, I don't know if I should say this, but like shit hit the fan, you guys. Within 48 hours, we had almost 2 billion impressions on every major news outlet, and every, like, of course, comedian and influencer across the country, you know, telling us that they were nuts about grape nuts, and they were, you know, telling our story for us and kind of cementing our status as a beloved kind of cult brand, if you will. And now keep in mind that this is a brand, right, who in the 3 years that I've worked at Post Consumer Brands, the budget has been less than my annual salary. And then we get 2 billion impressions in 2 days. Wow. So that was Wednesday, and the next call came to me on Sunday. And this time it was from my boss, who is our CMO and our Chief Growth Officer, asking me, like, what are we going to do to turn all these lemons into lemonade, right? And he wanted to see a game plan in like 48 hours of how we were going to do that. And so my first reaction was like, why are you asking me to do this? Like, shouldn't you be asking the business team, like, when they're going to make it and ship it again? Like, really? I don't want to drive any more pent up demand than what we already have. Like, why would we ever put gas on this fire? But then, you know, with all things kind of COVID related or stress induced, you kind of put on your, you know, your big girl marketing pants. And then I got like really excited, like really freaking excited, you guys. I don't think I slept in those 48 hours to follow, and I'm a few members of my team didn't either. So this was actually, I'm going to share this like tweet with you guys. This was right around the inauguration for Joe Biden. And we even had a fan tweet, like, if Biden doesn't fix the grape nuts shortage, he will have failed what he was elected to do. So we started to engage with the comments like that. And, you know, we said, hey, motion to make it the first executive order. Right. And so we were just some really great stuff, right? Some like consumer engagement gold. And ultimately, we kind of centered around this insight of fans telling us that they couldn't live without us. And keep in mind, this time of year, we were like, well, what better way to tell them that we can't live without them either than like leading up to and on Valentine's Day. Yeah. And under this guise of like absence makes the heart grow fonder. Mm-hmm. So we got to work like really fast, right? We created content. We issued a press release that was in a really quirky voice. It was actually in the form of kind of a love letter saying that, you know, the hottest date for Valentine's Day is actually in March when Grape Nuts returns to shelves, and nobody wants to be like ghosted on Valentine's Day, especially in a global pandemic. And we really leaned into this, like the quirkiness of this brand and the love that the consumers were showing for us. And then we like sent our fans chocolates and candy hearts, and we started to engage like big time with them. Love it. So we, at the same time, as a part of this like engagement, we created this like super secret super fans Facebook group. It was part of our release saying, here's, you know, we're going to be back in March, stick with us. And, you know, join us here for, you know, updates, special offers, and other opportunities to kind of engage with the brand. And then within another 48 hours of that, we had like 1,000 people join our group. So I'm going to share, I'll share my screen really quickly. I'm going to share some of the marketing gold that came out of this, you know, lack of supply due to COVID and the consumer engagement that followed. So let me pop that up super quick, just so you guys can kind of see how it all came to life. Okay, and now of course I can't find it, so hang tight. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, here we go. Can you guys see this?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So this is all about, in my mind, kind of following the consumer's lead. And so this was the great, I would say, not even shortage, but the comeback, I think is how you referenced it, Kerry. It was like, how do we turn this, moment into momentum? And you can see, right, by the time it's all finished, and quite honestly, it's still going, we got covered by 500 major news outlets, garnered 3 billion impressions. We drove demand increases on the backs of kind of scarcity and really this kind of FOMO, like, oh my God, grape nuts. I haven't talked about that forever. Yeah, I've got a craving for grape nuts. Consumers really being like, hey, I haven't talked about that for a while. And that sounds good. I mean, our demand increased, almost 2 times what it had been previously. I mentioned kind of the surprise and delight fan packages. I don't know, can you guys see, you can probably see myself on here too.
Yes.
And then we recently issued a 3rd press release at the end of March, announcing that anybody who paid more than kind of manufactured suggested retail price during the shortage, we would actually reimburse them, because I kid you
And
not,
how much were people paying?
they were paying up to like $115
Oh, come on.
nuts. I am not kidding you.
Oh my God. It's crazy.
So this is kind of the plan, right? We had a 3-phase plan. You can see some of the, placements and results there. But I think the bigger thing is we created this community of super fans. They like, these people like found their people. They were shipping boxes to each other. If they found some in their local store, and others were saying, hey, where'd you find those? They're like, you get me, these are my people. People were like, painting rock, making videos, writing songs, poems. I'm not sure if you can hear this one, but I'm going to play this TikTok video for you guys really quickly. Hang tight. Can you hear it?
Look at the doll arms. Oh my God. Oh.
Did you hear that?
Wow. Yeah.
That was in full transparency, that's actually somebody on our marketing team, but she seeded this video on TikTok and other people kind of followed suit, which was, and obviously she's super creative. We found
Audra. Oh, Audra, you're frozen.
they started like digging in and sharing history. People had like old ads, and they like dug up old episodes of like the Andy Griffith Show, which we used to be a part of. And they just started like, we kind of gave them the keys at this point in time. We're like, let's just follow their lead and see where this thing goes. And we found that these guys are like, they're super quirky. They're nuts, just like the brand kind of is. And so we're now leaning into it big time, right? And what's cool is like, we're now fully funded.
Good for you. Oh, Audra, you keep freezing.
The consumer's lead. So this is kind of our new campaign platform, and you can kind of all expect to see a lot more from Grape Nuts here in the future. So that's kind of my, my first pandemic story, I would say.
I love it. So Audra, I would suggest you stop sharing, so because I think it makes the video a little sticky. Oh, are you there, Audra? Uh-oh.
I'm trying. I apologize, everyone.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can, but you keep freezing, so I think it's maybe because of the screen share, but if you can hear me, we'll keep going.
Okay, let's do
that. Yeah, and as soon as you can stop the screen share, that'll be helpful, I think.
All right. It says close the Zoom program, so hang tight here.
Okay.
we're going to wait for it to respond.
Okay, well, while we do that, I'm curious, you know, were you, I know you said you had this 48-hour, you know, of no sleep. Was your team prepared for this kind of response? Did you already set it up? And if not, what advice would you give people in the audience for being prepared to turn a moment into momentum, as you so eloquently put it?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I would say we do have a really strong, media relations partner in Carmichael Lynch Relate here in the Minneapolis area. And I really owe a lot of credit to them for, jumping on it, not sleeping along with us,
Yep.
and helping to, guide us during the way. I mean, we, at one point in time, you guys, we were going to even engage Sarah Silverman, right? Because she was this brand super fan, and we were turning around like Q scores and deep dives on celebrities to determine if we should lean into them and have them be a part of it. We were going to maybe even propose to her on Valentine's Day to her unpaid intern. And so they helped guide kind of the whole brand reputation thing along the way. But I got to tell you, very quickly, we found out that we didn't really need a guide. We needed to just follow what these consumers were looking for. And they kind of, like I mentioned, took control of the brand. We leaned in and we kind of cheered them along the way. And so I would say, you're never really prepared for these types of things, but having, the right partners and just a team that's willing to roll up their sleeves, really helps you capitalize on moments like that.
Yeah, for sure. And then, now that things are going back to normal, is there any, and this is a question from the audience, but is there anything that you'll do that you experience now that you'll change permanently?
That's a really good question. I think sometimes we try to manufacture moments for brands and in specific periods of time. And I think this particular example would say, like, maybe we don't need to manufacture it. Maybe there's an insight, deep in the depths of, consumer engagement. And I think we'll probably do a bit more social listening. It's really hard to do right now, especially with the proliferation of social platforms. But, there's always nuggets in there that we maybe don't have to manufacture, but we can kind of, lean into and amplify. So I guess that would be my takeaway.
Yeah. So I actually, because there's a few questions from the audience, and please keep them coming. And this is and some of it's related to a conversation conversation we had when we talked, and we were going to talk about here, but I'm going to pull it up because there seems to be a lot of questions, about engaging, today's consumers, when we think about consumer behavior, how, what are the trends in consumer behavior, how you look at consumer behavior. And you and I had spoken about, very traditionally, consumer packaged goods. And I would say even more specifically, categories like cereal had always been very mom targeted, right? There was a very, like, everyone in the industry knew that, that there was a mom target because mom was the shopper, and there was just all of the advertising and marketing was geared towards mom. And so, we talked about this, but what are you seeing and what are you doing, as it relates to today's consumer? Is it still mom? Do you think about it that way? Are there trends in consumer behavior that are important to you? And how do you look at now who you target when you're thinking about your message? I imagine this grape nut experience, opened your mind a little bit too to who your consumer actually is. So how do you think about your consumer and how to identify and talk to them? Audra? Oh no. Well, we have to hope that Audra comes back. Okay, so let's hope that she comes back. It seems like she might be having trouble. One of the things in talking with her is less so about the demographic and more about like stage of life and interest. And so, you know, a lot of interest-based targeting now, as opposed to just demographic. We see this, you know, we market to kids and family, you know, as well, and marketing to kids is very different and, you know, highly legislated. You know, but we're always thinking about mom, you know, as well, because we still think that she is making most of the decisions. However, how we think about mom, where she is, what her behavior is, the trends, you know, that that woman of that age, you know, less about her being a mom and more about her, you know, interest in her family and interest in her kids. When Audra and I were talking about this, you know, we were, you know, talking about how much they have pivoted into, you know, interest-based targeting, because not everyone, for example, who likes, you know, grape nuts or fruity pebbles is necessarily a mom shopping for kids. And I think, you know, the example of grape nuts, where you had all of these fans who had a common interest, but probably very little else common to them, you know, hi, you're back.
Oh my goodness. I think we win the award for the worst Zoom presentation.
I'm like, dun, dun. I'm just like,
I was dancing too. You were frozen for me. And so I was like launching into the next story. So here we are again. Maybe I won't share slides anymore.
Well, what I was sort of teeing up, because there's a bunch of questions related to the trends in consumer behavior, how you think about engaging today's consumer. And, you know, it sparked the conversation that you and I had about, you know, very traditional CPG was always about mom, right? And how you think about that now, you know, even in light of, you know, the response to grape nuts, how do you think about targeting your consumer, you know, either differently, or if it is still mom, how do you think about her today?
Yeah, it's funny. When Kerry and I were doing our prep, she was like, CPG is fun, right? You get to target moms and make smile commercials. Well, she actually didn't say that bite and smile part, but but you did ask about the challenges that existed with maybe everyone going after the same consumer, right? And
Right.
you should ask. So we at Post have recently been on a journey to kind of define more clear swim lanes for our brands, to kind of limit the overlap between them, and then maximize our opportunity across kind of morning food occasions, even beyond cereal, just focused on foods consumed in the morning. And so it's been a really long journey. It's been really, really fun and insightful, but we've defined some new strategies that focus on moments, right? And what consumers are looking for versus kind of how old they are or how many kids they have in the household. And I think that is the true essence of consumer engagement. And I think, you know, while some media is obviously purchased by demo, there's a lot that isn't. And I think, you know, many of you on the line know this, obviously, it can actually be much more expensive to purchase these demo overlays, right? Than it is just to target or lean into these specific consumer interests or occasions or moments. And so think about this for a moment, right? I think, you know, most social platforms, of course, you've got to give up your age just to like get in the door, right? But you might not fill out any of the other profile information at all. And, you know, by now we all kind of realize how damn good these algorithms are, right? Just based on the content that they're serving up to us each and every day. And that's based on consumer engagement. That's based on what we engage in, you know, what our interests are, and not necessarily our age or the fact that you have, you know, 2 kids in household, unless a marketer wants to pay for it. And I'm guilty as charged with that. And so I kid you not, on one of our brands recently, we, as a part of defining this new strategy, we tested 10 new targets in social, and we tested them against kind of our normal, I'll call it demo target. And we wanted to find out what was more efficient and effective. And I got to tell you, it was not moms with kids. It wasn't moms at all. In fact, it was consumers who are aligned to a specific interest target. And, you know, not only were they kind of more engaged, but they bought more. You know, all of the media that we put forward is shoppable. So we use that as a proxy for understanding sales. And like, to top it all off, they were, you know, 50 cents cheaper on a CPM basis. And what that unlocked for this particular brand is it gave them a whole extra quarter's worth of media pressure in market by making the switch to that audience. that is really, engaged with what this brand has the unique right to talk about. And so we are really, I would say, underway in terms of shifting from targeting mom to targeting moments, and even more importantly, kind of mindsets. And I'm really excited to see where that takes us.
That's great. And it's good advice for any of us who are, constantly mining, for, that silver bullet from message to, to recipient to consumer, right? We're always trying to make that more efficient, One of the other great stories that we talked about is a brand that's near and dear to my heart as growing up was Fruity Pebbles. And we at Pocket.Watch, we sit very much in the licensing and merchandising world. And so this actually really surprised me, really surprised me, that a brand like Fruity Pebbles has apparently just realized that it's licensable. And that all of a sudden you guys over at Post realize that you've got a property that can be licensed. And so talk a little bit about, I think we've got about 10 or 11 minutes left. Talk about what was the consumer insight? What made you think that engaging consumers on a licensing program for Fruity Pebbles, like why that would matter, how that helps engage your consumer, and what it has meant for your business?
Yeah, again, I bring it all back to just like following the consumer and thinking about what they're telling us in terms of their words and actions. And so Pebbles actually is a 50-year-old brand, lots of great historical brands in the Post portfolio. It celebrated its 50th birthday this year. And I would actually argue that it's kind of even a bigger part of culture today than it was when it launched 50 years ago, which was actually the first cereal inspired by a TV show. So fun fact, you can share that with your friends. And it's a pretty unique cereal, right? It's got, really bright colors. It's got a really intense aroma, and it's actually gluten-free. So in like a world of no, it's something that moms can say yes to. And like more recently, it's kind of become a bit of a pop culture sensation. So, it showed up in Justin Timberlake's shopping cart on Instagram. LeBron James made some custom shoes because it's one of his favorite cereals. And even Lady Gaga showed up in her bed after she won a Golden Globe, but she like skipped the after parties to have a bowl like under her sheets. And so you might have seen this if you go to like a donut shop or a bakery. Fruity Pebbles is often used as, colorful toppings in, cakes and by bloggers and recipes. And then we started to see it pop up in merchandise on Etsy. We started to see it in flavors in scented candles, in alcohol, and believe it or not, even in e-cigarettes, which, that might all sound good to you guys, not the e-cigarette part, but there was a problem, right? We actually weren't in control of that activity. So this is our fastest growing brand in our portfolio. And we had unauthorized third parties developing both products and apparel with our cereal, with our flavor, and with our color. And so we were like, oh God, that's not good, right? So we saw an opportunity to kind of act on that. And, we're not looking to like, shut down the mom and pop bakery shops. Like that's great. We want them to continue to do that. But it was a really big effort, right? We had to work across our organization with, our legal department, our ingredient sales department, quality, food safety, and even Warner Brothers, who's our partner on the Pebbles brand, to develop this outbound licensing capability for our business. And we did it, entirely from scratch. And once we had kind of the process and the guardrails in place, kind of proactively like networked and pitched other consumer products companies, like, sharpened up our LinkedIn skills to try to bring some, to license this brand that's so powerful and to bring these kind of fun, fresh collaborations to consumers. So we started this about a year ago, and it's already resulted in more than 10 partnerships in market. And so believe it or not, we launched, and I'm not going to show the slide because I don't want to shut us down again.
Don't.
Protein powders. So for, people who are muscle builders, they want flavor too. And so that was kind of our first outbound license. I know it's kind of strange, but that was a part of our Post Consumer Brands family. So we started there. It won Protein Product of the Year. It's turning number 4 and number 6 in the total category.
Crazy.
Frankfurt, they do a lot of like novelty chocolate products that you see, in aisle at Easter and at Christmas. So we did kind of some Pebbles chocolate bars, think like a Crunch bar, but with Pebbles in it, both vanilla and chocolate. Pebbles ice cream in fruity and cocoa flavors. Partnered with Duncan Hines to launch epic fruity Pebbles cake kits. So all the things you're seeing in these bakeries, now showing up in the dry baking aisle. And right now, that particular item is the #3 turning cake mix at Walmart behind vanilla and chocolate.
And what is it doing? What is it doing for core brand sales? What is it doing for the actual cereal sales?
Yeah, so that's a really great question, right? This particular brand, it's on fire. I'm not going to tell you how much. I might have some competitors on the call who know exactly how much, but it's really, I think, contributing to just brand love. And you think about all those licensed products in, different aisles, giving us more impressions, more ways for consumers to engage, and, also creating incremental revenue streams that we can kind of invest back into building the brand too. International Delight Coffee Creamer is another one. They actually built an ad on our behalf. I was going to show it to you guys, but we'll crash the internet here again. And so we have other brands marketing on our behalf because we are delivering such a strong licensed brand to market. And so that's been a really, again, following the consumer's lead, seeing what they're already engaging in, and then us, bringing it to market in a more, meaningful and impactful way.
Nice. Well, last question, this is from the audience. What is the biggest surprise or biggest learning that you've had in the last year?
Oh, the biggest surprise or the biggest learning? That's a great
question. Besides grape nuts is like people are cuckoo for grape nuts.
Yeah. Unprecedented demand for grape nuts and licensed fruity Pebbles items. Those would be two for sure. I think the biggest surprise to me is just kind of what we're capable of as marketers, right? And I think we often get stuck on the like rinse and repeat of, hey, let's do a save as on our plans from last year, and let's plus it up with a couple of new things, or carve out a certain percentage of our dollars for test and learn. That kind of all got thrown out the window this year, and we had to kind of operate a bit more on the fly. Like, I kid you not, you guys, we had so much demand for some of our products, we had to pull our commercials off the air, and in another like 5-hour stint, we, like most companies did, like we shot an ad in like 5 days for like $20,000 and put it on like the media weight that would otherwise be occupied by honey bunches of oats, because we couldn't service it. And so I think just testing the limits of our capabilities as marketers happened this past year, and we didn't necessarily get a lot of sleep, but like I started the conversation, really made for some really remarkable moments in our careers. And so I think kind of got us off the lazy train a little bit, if I'm being honest.
I mean, it's a really candid response, because it's certainly with like big companies with established brands, like you said, you can just do things the same way that you've done them before that are safe, and was there anything that you wish you had been better prepared for?
Oh, that's a great question.
When you look back and you go, damn it, like I didn't hire that person, or I was cheap over here, or I wish I had social listening tools different. Like, was there still a moment where you were like,
I'll give you an example. We're the #3 manufacturer in the category behind General Mills and Kellogg's, both great competitors. And we were behind in e-commerce. We were kind of, tin cupping our way to like having a presence online. And so I remember at the time I was actually leading that part of the business, I literally was like, okay, brand X, brand Y, brand Z, can you give us like 1% of your budget, 2% of your budget? And then like COVID hit, right? And it was like, oh crap, like nobody is going in store. It's not safe to. Everybody is like going online in droves. And so that was another call from our CEO. And he was like, what are you going to do about it? This is your business. I was like, well, I got no money in my business. Right. And I said, I don't know, but I said, if you give me $1 million, I will I'll find the ceiling, and I'll find how much I think we need to spend and do it in a profitable, responsible way. Yeah. And he wrote us the check, and we got going, and that brand, or that part of our business, is now, funded much more than where we started. Let me just tell you that.
Right.
And we had to build capability fast. So I think like, don't wait. Another thing is like, don't wait for the moment, right? You kind of have to think about the pandemic moment
Right.
and use that as the platform for selling your plans. And I think us as marketers, we're going to be able to do a little bit of that, right? Hey, remember what happened when?
Right. Right.
Um,
You
and
don't want another pandemic, do you?
yeah, yeah. And so, we brushed off a lot of our like preparedness plans. And I think that that'll put us in a position to be more prepared going forward too.
Yeah. Well, I think we're close to time. But I would say, we probably have a lot of marketers who are at various stages, of their careers and also in various size companies. You obviously work for a massive company, where I work for a little baby company. But, if you had, as people are coming up in their careers, is there any advice, either that this year or just in your experience working with the consumer, right? Because it's about consumer engagement.
Yeah.
Some of your key takeaways that if you're one, we always know we want to put the consumer first, right? And so that's the sort of, the golden rule. But are there 2 or 3 other golden rules that you live by, being so engaged with consumers?
Yeah, one of them is to, and I think Flora mentioned this too, just be a constant student. There are a lot of like, your inbox can get overwhelmed on any given day with all of the information that's out there. And so learn, right? Don't assume you know the consumer. You have to really take the time, and hopefully you've got great, insights partners at the organization that you work for. And even if you don't, and you work at a small, you can be the consumer insights person. So I would, investing the time to learn and to actually uncover the insight up front will help you go a lot further faster in the end, and make sure that, whatever you're putting into market, hits with consumers too.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I think the presence of Pearl Hook tells me that we're out of time. But I wanted to thank Audra. It was really amazing.
Yes,
you have a lot of insights, with how to engage consumers. I encourage people to connect with Audra as well. She has a wealth of knowledge. We only covered a fraction of what she knows. So hopefully she can be a resource going forward, and good luck with all of your success. I mean, it's amazing some of the things you've been able to accomplish in the last year, really, truly.
Yeah, thank you. And apologies to everybody for the technical difficulties.
Yeah, we figured it out.
Thanks for the Fireside.